Supervisors meeting for Monday, September 23rd, 2024. We're going to get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll join us. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a couple announcements. Mark your calendars for this year's Autumn Fest on October 19th from noon to 5 at William F. Mall Park at Windlestray. While there are no fireworks this year, we invite you to join us for many of your returning favorites, including inflatable amusements, hay rides, pumpkin decorating, scarecrow making, helicopter landing, police canine demonstrations, face painting, pony rides, petting zoo, and police fire department displays. Follow our social media and check our website for more details. It's always a really great family day. Also, the Montgomery County Board of Commissioners and Salary Board will host their next Board on the Road public meeting right here at the Montgomery Township building on October 10th at 6 p.m. For more information, visit montgomerycountypa.gov. Just want to give a little shout out to a new face that we have sitting over there, Acting Chief Bill Peoples. We're happy to have you. Welcome. All righty. Sure.
Is it okay?
Sure.
Okay, great. I wanted to do a quick announcement on behalf of the Montgomery County Voter Services Department. There is the mail-in ballots will be printed and mailed out very shortly. But to let everyone know, regardless of where and how you vote, the ballots will be two-sided, double-sided. So I want everyone to be aware that they need to flip over their ballot to vote for two races on the back of their ballot in addition to the front of the ballot. So I wanted to let people to know that, as well as that we also have in Montgomery County now early in-person voting available between October 4th and the 28th. This is available at one of 8 satellite offices, county voter services offices, one of which is in Lansdale. It's our closest office, which is located at 421 West Main Street in Lansdale. Again, between October 4th and the 28th, they will be open on Monday and Friday afternoons from 4:30 to 8:30 p.m. Saturday, Sunday on the weekends, they'll be open from 8 a.m. until 4:30 p.m. And if you want additional information and for information about additional locations for those satellite offices, you can visit the county voter services website. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for that info. Next will be public comment. Any person wishing to make public comment during this meeting on any items not listed on the agenda may do so at this time. Is there any public comment? No public comment. Okay. Next thing we have is just going to make sure that as you're coming in, did you have any public comment to make on any? Okay. Item number 5 is our consent agenda. I'm going to move to approve the consent agenda as presented for the following: the minutes of the September 9th, 2024 board meeting and the payment of bills for September 23rd, 2024.
Second.
Any public comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, item number 6, presentation for the Hope Card program for domestic violence survivors. We have Ann and Noah.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman. Is it okay if I stand here? Is this a good spot? All right, great. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Noah Marlier. I am the Montgomery County Prothonotary. Of course, I know all 5 supervisors very well, and it's an honor to be here this evening. This is Ann Cornell, my outreach director for the Prothonotary's office. For those folks, and there won't be a test on this, I promise, at the end, but for those who don't know what a Prothonotary is, it's where you file civil legal papers with the county. So whenever somebody's suing somebody or responding to a lawsuit, whenever someone's getting divorced, uh, uh, when someone's changing their name, when a neighbor is getting evicted from their home, when they're filing those legal papers, they all come through my office. So we want to make sure that we're efficient and effective for the county residents, because a lot of folks do come through the courthouse, and we're kind of the first step into the courthouse. Oftentimes, before you have an attorney, you're coming through my office, and you want a friendly face, but you also want folks that know what they're doing and are efficient at what they do. As you can see up on the screen, there's over 100 different filing types, including a lot of what I just mentioned. But what I'm here tonight for specifically is our Protection from Abuse Department, PFAs. Now, you may know it as restraining orders. And the reason we know it as restraining orders is because in the movies, they're called restraining orders. Movies are made in California. In California, they're called restraining orders. But in many states, including Pennsylvania, they're called Protection from Abuse, PFAs. I have 4 PFA analysts and a PFA supervisor, and we see 30 to 50 people coming in weekly to get PFAs from my department. 3 types of protection from abuse. Protection from abuse is the most common. This has changed in recent years. When I was a district attorney with your solicitor, John Walco, when we were DAs, there was just PFAs. That was it. But in that time, in the last decade, there's now protection from intimidation, which can cover minors, and protection from sexual violence. Now, the 30 to 50 people that come in to my office per week, we see same-sex partners where there's abuse. We see women abusing men. But the majority of people that come through are women. And oftentimes they have children in tow. Sometimes they have fresh bruises on their face or on their arms from abuse that morning or the night before. So I take this very, very seriously. And we have a couple of initiatives that I'm here to talk to you about tonight that we've launched just this year that I think are really going to help survivors. So the first one is the Hope Card program. So when you get a PFA, you get a temporary PFA, and you come back within 10 days and you have a hearing, and you can get a final PFA if the judge deems that you've reached a certain threshold to prove that case. But the PFA final order looks like this. It can be many pages long. And again, going back to my DA days, people that have these final PFAs, they don't keep it on their person. They might keep it on their living room table. They might keep it in a lockbox. They might keep it in their glove compartment. So what we decided was, let's make it easier to have that information on their person. So with every final PFA that I have to send out by law as prothonotary, we're sending out a Hope Card. It's this size, credit card size document, laminated, and it has some of the pertinent information from the PFA on the front of the card: the plaintiff, the defendant, the PFAD number, who your new acting chief, he knows what that is. It's that state ID number that his officers need to look up this information. So for survivors in the Montgomeryville Mall, walking around and her abuser is behind her, stalking her through the mall, she can go right up to a loss prevention officer or an officer at the mall, security guard or police officer, and say, I have a Hope Card. I have a PFA. Please help me. And I think this is going to short circuit some of that process. Now, the officers have, if they can look up someone's name, they can find this information. But I'm hoping this makes it just a little bit easier, a little bit less obstacles involved for the survivor, and hopefully gives her a little bit more hope. On the back is resources: Victim Services Center of Montgomery County, Laurel House, Women's Center of Montgomery County. Again, just to give a little more hope to that survivor. This is a program that is nowhere else in Pennsylvania. We heard about it. I heard about it talking to one of your counterparts in Plymouth, Karen Bramblett, councilwoman there. And she had this idea. She said, Noah, they're doing this in Montana. They're doing this in a Native American territory out west. They've since passed a law in Washington state. This has to be done. But it wasn't being done here. So I'm so proud of this initiative. And we launched it just this year. So anyone who's gotten a final PFA order in Montgomery County has gotten this in the last few months. So just to be clear, this isn't something as amazing as it sounds, Hope Card. It's not something you want. This is something that goes to people when they get a PFA order, but hopefully it gives them a little bit more hope. Secondly, another initiative we just launched this year, an online protection from abuse packet. So this process is not easy. It's certainly not fun. It's really hard. It's daunting. A survivor has to go to the courthouse. They got to go to Norristown because they have to have a hearing, but they got to go to court administration, fill out a 15-page packet. They go down to my office. We type in that information. Then they go to court and have their temporary PFA hearing. Then they go back to my office. We type in that information. Then they go to the sheriff's department to have the PFA, temporary PFA served. It's a back and forth in Norristown that's very, very daunting. So what we decided was if we can make it just a little bit easier, not easy, it's never going to be easy, but if we can make it a little bit easier, that's what we're going to do. So now we have an electronic packet. We're only the second county in Pennsylvania to do this. So that first step I just mentioned, that 15-page packet, instead of having to come into the courthouse, into Norristown, spending a couple hours potentially filling out that packet, you can do it anywhere where there's an internet hookup. From the comfort of your home, start that packet. Whatever you do can be saved and goes to court administration. We're seeing that it's shaving off 2 hours, hour and a half, an hour off the time that a survivor has to be in Norristown in the court system. And that's important to lower those barriers, to lower any obstacle that we can. So again, very, very proud of these two initiatives. Again, I know all 5 of you. And as public servants, I'm pretty sure you all feel the same way I do, which is when you wake up in the morning, you ask one question: how do I help someone who needs help the most? And that's what we're trying to do in the Prothonotary's office. And these are just 2 initiatives that we've come up with this year. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
I would just, before any questions, love to give you my thanks and a big round of applause for the time that you're saving people that have to come in to do this. We as a board of women, as you said, it's more women that come in for these protection from abuses. It's terrible that it happens, but anything that you can do to make it easier on the women and whoever it is that's coming in, we appreciate that. Both of you and your staff, please extend how very seriously we take this and how amazing it is that you're helping our residents and everyone in the county to get through a difficult thing a little bit easier. Thank you for
That
caring.
means a lot to me. Thank you so much.
So if there's questions.
I have a few questions. A temporary order can be extended for any amount of time. There's no hope card for that. Is there any plans in the future to maybe add that on?
It's something to think about for sure. We've kind of launching the program and we would look to expand it from there.
Sure.
So it's certainly something to think about.
Okay. With the new courthouse being built, is the PFA office going to be streamlined in any way? I know there's 4, 5, 6 different places you have to go. I know the courthouse, and it still is intimidating to go back and forth, one Montgomery and the courthouse. I'm just wondering if you're streamlining that with the new courthouse.
In my mind, my dream would be that it would be all the services in one place. I will say there is going to be a PFA courtroom in the new Justice Center, which is immediately adjacent to the old courthouse. Right now, my office is across the street in 1 Montgomery Plaza. The county says in 2 years, but it's not going to be 2 years. In a few years, when the courthouse is renovated, so they're going to build the Justice Center, finish that up, then renovate the courthouse. When that's done, we're going to move back to the courthouse. So we'll be immediately adjacent to that PFA courtroom. Court administration, I believe, is going to be back in the old courthouse, and I believe sheriffs is going to be back in the old courthouse as well. So it should all be roughly in the same place.
Okay, and then my last question, maybe. Final orders are not in any other language other than English right now. We deal with a lot of, I take care of the Spanish-speaking clients and kind of walk through it myself, as long as with the court interpreter as well, just to make sure if the defendant is unrepresented, the interpreter definitely does his or hers. What process is in place for making sure that more of this information is put out there in different languages, especially that final order? We do hear that, oh, I didn't know that that's what it meant. They don't remember it. There's too much going on in court that day.
Right. So I'm really glad you asked, and I'd like to think I'm leading the charge in this in the county, or one of the people leading the charge. This is a major problem in our county, that we don't have resources for people that are where their English is a second language potentially, where they don't speak English. So we're working with Victim Services Center of Montgomery County in really trying to push the courts to continue to make translation services a priority. There was a a program, kind of a soft launch on what's called Pocket Talk, I think it was. It looks like a cell phone, and it translates. It's AI that translates. That's a translation service. And we said, give them to us. We'll test it out. And they work really, really well. We hired a Spanish speaker in the PFA department, and first Spanish speaker that anyone can remember in our office for a long time. And there's a reason for that. We've specifically cast a wider net in hiring for my office, lowering some barriers that have been there in the past for folks. And this person is a Norristown graduate, very young, right out of high school, and she's incredible. So we have a Spanish speaker, but that's not the sustainable change that you're looking for. I think that's going to come from the conversations we're having with Victim Services Center and the courts, using this Pocket Talk. And like I said, we have one with the PFA department, one with our clerks, and our clerks are all being trained on that. But we've also taken steps, and I have taken steps to make sure that all of our literature from my office, because as you can imagine, the court administration controls the courts and the orders, which is what specifically you're asking about. But everything from my office, all the literature is translated at least into Spanish, and we're trying to get everything translated into Korean and other languages. Frankly, it's a budgetary issue, but we've translated everything into Spanish, which I'm very proud of.
I've had conversations with Michael Case as well, so he's aware that I'm pushing too.
And Michael Case is involved in those conversations with Victim Services. So you're talking to the right person.
Thanks. Yeah. And thank you for what you do, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Noah. I just wanted to say thank you, but also to ask, have other counties in the Commonwealth expressed interest, and have you shared this information with them? Because I think this is something we shouldn't gatekeep here in Montgomery County.
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe that Bucks County followed us with the we were the second county regarding electronic PFAs. Bucks County has followed, and I have gotten inquiries on that. And the Hope Cards, I mean, geez, catchy name, right? I mean, people are definitely asking about it, and I think
Great idea.
I think it's something that's, frankly, it's easier for us to do, and this is why Washington State did it the wrong way. They have legislated this, so every single county in Washington State has to do it. Well, some counties don't have quite the resources that others do. Here in Montgomery County, we're lucky enough to be able to send this to the print shop, have them cut for us, and send them out. We have that budget to do it.
Perfect.
So it might get a little tricky in some counties, but there's certainly counties that are interested.
Great. Thanks for showing us the way with the best practices.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you again from the bottom of our 5 hearts for taking care of those who need it the most and
Thank
making
you.
it easier for them.
Well, it was an honor to be here tonight. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move into planning and zoning. Item number 7, preliminary final land development for Panera. It's going to be Mary Ann or?
So we have the
Mary Ann?
applicant here tonight to present their application for a proposed Panera Bread restaurant on an existing pad site within the Airport Square Shopping Center at 801 Bethlehem Pike. They're proposing a 4,300 square foot restaurant with the outdoor patio area, drive-through, bypass lanes, associated parking and landscaping. They were previously granted conditional use approval during the May 28th, 2024 Board of Supervisors public meeting. Township staff and consultants have had the opportunity to review the details of the land development plan. The corresponding review letters and waiver requests are in your packet. The Planning Commission was also presented this project at their August 15th, 2024 meeting, and those minutes are included in your packet as well. If the board chooses to grant preliminary final land development approval, they will need to do so by adopting a resolution which has been drafted by the Township Solicitor's Office.
Good evening. My name is Jim Garrity. I represent the Airport Square Shopping Center, as well as the manager, the real estate manager of the shopping center, which is the Wilder Company out of Boston. With me tonight, I have Ron Kloss from Bowler Engineering and Kelly Burke from the Wilder Company. There were, as many of you may know, a number of emails about this project this afternoon. Quite a number, actually. But I had an opportunity to discuss the approval resolution, which had been sent to me, I think, originally by Mary Ann, and then again by Mary Ann and John today. And I think I won't take it upon myself to speak for other people, but I think we're down really to two issues. I had an opportunity to discuss those two issues with John before the meeting this evening. And the two issues are, we have been asked, you will probably remember, to do a sidewalk across a portion of the frontage of our property, as we did for another pad site, which we agreed to. We had also been asked to do a pedestrian connection from the proposed restaurant to the main sidewalk of the shopping center, which we agreed to. And then the planning commission suggested that we put a sidewalk all the way across our entire frontage, which unfortunately dead ends right into a building. And I literally mean into a building. There's a building on Bethlehem Pike that you may not be familiar with, but if you go out there and look, it's on the next property, and it is, I think, 1 foot from the curb. So that's where we would be dead ending into. So we suggested an alternative, which is part of your, I think it's part of your pedestrian plan for Montgomeryville, which is a connection to the rear of the site where the Windsor development is going to go. And that would go to the main sidewalk of the shopping center. And we offered to those we spoke to, Mary Ann and a couple of others, that we'll do either one. We do not wish to do both, obviously. That's one issue. And we have many pictures, although they've been sent to the township in advance. So presumably you've had a chance to look at the two sidewalk alternatives and where they might go. And then the second issue is the township wanted us to dedicate some right-of-way. I guess it's along the road that leads to Airport Square, North Wales Road, and it will permit the Windsor developer to either build, I'm not sure if it's a right-hand turn lane, but it's definitely a sidewalk that'll turn right onto Airport Square from North Wales Road. And we have pretty much agreed all along to do that, but unfortunately, like every property in this township, our property is encumbered by a mortgage, and the larger lessees in our shopping center have a right to veto anything in the shopping center that would change the shape of the property. We need to get their consents, or our agreement to do it, sign a deed of dedication is meaningless because you won't get good title. So what I talked to John about before the meeting, and John, you can interrupt me whenever you like, is that we would even agree to sign the deed and put it in escrow with John if we could have enough time to go to our lender, who is likely to say, or could say, I know this is small, but I might like to see a release fee of $200,000. That could happen. We don't know if that will. We hope it won't. The lessees could do the same thing to us. They could say, well, we have a right of approval under this lease to any change in the shape of the property, and therefore we'll agree to this deed of dedication if you write us a check, or cut our rent or something like that. So we need time to negotiate those consents. And we also need to keep this, we desperately need to keep this project moving. Or we're simply going to lose the prospective tenant who has the right to cancel the lease next month. So we've got to keep things moving. So I think if you can agree to authorize John to make those two changes, well, actually, we only need one really. If you just choose one of the sidewalk alternatives and give us some time on the to get the approval of the lenders and the lessees on the right-of-way dedication, then I think we're there. And everything else in the resolution, I think we can negotiate or get around or whatever as time goes on, but we don't have to change it.
So to a little bit of background, again, the resolution is somewhat unique, is that it does provide the options of the sidewalks and attaches the sidewalks with the idea. Again, the ordinance says that sidewalk is to be installed as the board of supervisors believes is necessary and proper. Those options were presented. those options are before the board for discussion purposes tonight. So those are built into the resolution without a decision being made, obviously on the board's behalf. So I believe that is discussion that needs to happen tonight. The second issue, obviously, I think from the township position is that the landowner, Mr. Garrity's client, can only do so much. And it's the township's desire to make sure that the client doesn't delay the issue. So if the client is willing to sign off on these easements and these dedications of rights of way, and have that held sort of in an escrow to not be recorded until these consents are obtained, as long as we have the authorization from the client, that would be sufficient for the township's purposes while those other matters would continue. So as Mr. Garrity said, if we could agree to have that signed but not recorded, not enforced until those matters would come up, I think that would be sufficient for the purposes of that particular condition, which then would just lead us to only the sidewalk issue. And this is not a waiver request because they are willing to put in the sidewalks. So I'm not asking to waive the sidewalks. I don't believe there are any concerns with any of the remaining waivers from a staff point of view. I'll defer to Ms. McConnell, but as long as those fees are paid, which they've agreed to do for the fee and lieu, there weren't any additional waivers. So really it would just be the sidewalk discussion.
If the board has not had an opportunity to select or to see what the two alternatives are on the sidewalks, we did send over to the township photographs and plans that showed the two alternatives. If you have not had a chance to see them, Ron Claus is here with me, and he has all of that information on his computer there, and we can put it up on the screen if you would like. If, however, you have chosen one of the alternatives, that's fine as well.
And they are attached as exhibits to the resolution.
Right.
They are attached as exhibits to the resolution for reference as well.
Fine.
I would ask if we could go ahead and put them up on the screen. They might be a little easier to see. We were able to zoom in and see some of what you were
See
talking.
it up there?
I believe so.
Oh, sorry.
And then I'll just bring to the attention of the board, number 10 calls for bollards.
saw
That
that too.
issue we had a
Yes.
couple weeks ago with someone
I
else.
had it in
and-
my notes to ask
Okay,
about that too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to just ask the obvious question that you already brought up, but it would seem that both sidewalks would be great for our community, the walkability, getting more people to the restaurant. It would be a win-win, I would think, for our community, connecting, even though you say it ends at a building. Like, for years now, we've been trying to do everything we can to make it more walkable for everyone. So I would just love to ask if it could be considered that we could have both sidewalks. I think it would be great for, like I said, the walkability of our township, the new build that's going to go behind there. Those people could walk in and people could safely be out on 309 where we have so many kids and people on bikes and scooters. I would plead that, could we do both?
I have a couple of responses, as you might imagine. One is the sidewalk is not that sidewalk along frontage is not part of your pedestrian plan and never has been. It was requested anyway. The sidewalk to the rear to the Windsor development was part of the plan, as I understand it, but was actually in a slightly different location, a few feet. It's on the other side of the driveway, but it goes to the same place. Ron, are you able to control your thing?
Yeah, so I just brought up the
Okay.
plan, which shows here's our pad site in this area
Yes.
here. We show the connectivity to the rear a little bit differently, but instead of coming up on this side of the main drive aisle, we're showing it coming up into where the TJ Maxx building is, and then through this area and connecting back to the rear of the property. And then, as Jim pointed out, this was the 309 frontage that he mentioned that was not originally part of your planning for sidewalk.
The other thing is on the Panera Bread side of that driveway entrance, which makes sense. I mean, otherwise, I don't know who we're building it for. We're building it for the rest of the shopping center, and we would have to cross that driveway somewhere. So we just put it down the one side. The second and probably more important thing about the request is that we simply can't afford it. We have given and given and given and given on this project, and it's only a pad site. It's not a Sears or a gigantic department store. It's a little tiny pad site, and we will then have four different sidewalk requests for this project. We've already agreed to two of them, and all we've said is, can we please, on the last one, which there are two alternatives, one of which is not on your pedestrian plan, can you just pick one, and we'll do that as well. There is a point at which these projects, as you can imagine, they just don't pencil out. We can't make them work. And ownership, quite understandably, does not wish to take on a project that is a loser from day one. And frankly, if we have to do both, I think Panera will just walk. They may walk anyway, but we're trying to do as much as we possibly can for the township. And we were initially requested to do the sidewalk connection from the restaurant to the main sidewalk in the development. Then we agreed to do the sidewalk from the end of the last sidewalk along about a quarter of our frontage and into the parking lot and in the restaurant. So that's number 2. And now we have 3 and 4, and we reached the breaking point a long time ago. So while I understand the request, I also note that the one along the frontage along 309 doesn't go to the intersection. So anybody attempting to get to that sidewalk is going to have to do a mid-block crossing at a place where cars are going very, very fast. So it probably just is not safe. And then just a few more feet and you're on into the side of the building. So those are my answers to that one. We can show you all of this in the pictures and you can see them. But the bottom line is just the reality that we can only afford so much. Would you like to see the pictures of both alternatives?
I will. Yeah. Okay.
Show where they are.
Sure. So option 1 that was labeled on the plans is up on the screen now. This is along the frontage of Route 309. So we took a series of pictures along the frontage here. This is looking northbound. This is the sidewalk pedestrian crossing that's there now that was recently constructed that we're connecting to and bringing sidewalk up into the pad site. So from there, again, looking northbound on 309 along the frontage. So these series of pictures are all on the frontage. This is the driveway as you get up towards Chipotle that we'll have to cross, get past the sign and some landscaping. And then here's the area where we get to the edge of the property, and you can see up in the top of the picture, and we have a couple other more close-up shots. There's a building that's just off of our property boundary, which is, as Jim said, maybe a foot or so just off the curb line. And then this is looking in the opposite direction of that building, which is, again, that sets the area just off of our property. And there's just a zoomed out of that same one. So then option 2 that we had in your package was, as I mentioned, pad site for the Panera. We had agreed to extend a pedestrian connectivity up to the TJ Maxx. And then as part of this option 2, then it would be taking it from that point along the south side of TJ Maxx and then up to the roadway which we would align that pedestrian crossing with, I believe sidewalk has been constructed along the water tower property at a point and stops, which is right about in this area. And then it looks like, based on some plans that we had seen, that there was future pedestrian sidewalk that was going to be extended northbound along the roadway. So we would provide an ADA ramp and then some crossing then at that point. So that's option 2. And scrolling down through the plans, we have some additional photos of the area. This is along that south side of the TJ Maxx building, some landscaping in the background. You can see the water tower in the background. So we'd be heading along this sidewalk, and then we would have to modify the landscaping up through here, take our sidewalk through this area. There's, again, that landscaping on the south side. This is looking towards the back roadway where we would be connecting to. Again, modification of sidewalk and some grading would be required there. And then this is the rear drive aisle behind TJ Maxx. So we would be taking it across here. There's a tree there that we would have to either remove, or if we can get by it and not damage the root system. This is about where that crossing would be, with the water tank area being just over here to the right.
Ron, just let me interrupt you. That what you're pointing to is the point at which the Windsor sidewalk across the street terminates.
Correct. Looking at the plans that we have, Windsor sidewalk comes up to about this location here. And then let me scroll down one more, couple more. There's that termination point of where the existing sidewalk along the water tower property was. So we would be looking at making that crossing somewhere in this area then. And then that's
There's
just
a better
kind of
shot of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's just a sketch of, okay, as you come across the roadway, this would be the future sidewalk for Windsor.
Ron, who's responsible on that side of the street for the ramp going down to Airport Road?
This here?
Yeah, is that the Windsor development?
Yeah, this would be part of the Windsor development here.
Okay.
So that just gives you kind of a flavor of what you'd be seeing at each of those options.
So my concern about the extension to the Windsor project, although I think
I'm sorry, I'm going to move in.
I really wish we could do both, because I do see that as being particularly important for connectivity, pedestrian connectivity to the Village of Windsor project. But that Village of Windsor project is still a couple of years off, and right now we have a lot of pedestrians who are traversing in front of that property, and it's not safe for them. And so, if the board really has to choose between one option or the other, my preference would be to fix the area in greatest need where currently we have pedestrians and they don't have a safe pathway, and that would be along that 309 frontage.
I agree. I also think because we just added the crosswalk across 309, it's something that would be a natural place. Like it ends right there. We want to make sure that gets to a safe spot that would get them to Panera Bread as well as to other areas along 309. I just think that having that is an essential, to me, would be a priority ahead of anything else, as much as I would love to see all the sidewalks, but we understand the limits.
If I can just point out one thing, to us, it's a toss up. We'll do as you wish. My concern is encouraging people by building the sidewalk along 309 to get to that point where you have 1 foot. You literally have to turn sideways to avoid getting hit. So if you encourage people to go there, they might go out onto 309, and that could be a little dicey, but it's what we're talking about.
I think I like the 309 option better because I feel that the one that winds through could be a little dangerous. There's cars coming through there that aren't paying attention. People are on their phone. So if we had to pick.
And to alleviate the issue at the, that 1 foot area, maybe bringing the sidewalk back by 4 or 5 feet, just so that.
We're taking it to the property line.
Yeah.
But it doesn't get to the intersection. It doesn't get to a light. It's a mid-block situation.
Right.
And until someone knocks down that building, it's a problem.
Well, could we potentially turn the corner instead of going up to the building?
Right. Turn it into the parking lot.
because there are people who would potentially want to like walk that way to get to other.
Walk on along 309.
I mean, Golf
Right.
Galaxy is back there, and
I would almost consider putting a barrier there so people do not try and sneak through.
That's, I mean,
Yeah.
you're all too
Yeah.
young to know this,
Yeah.
but that's why sidewalk wasn't put along 309 in the beginning.
Mhm.
The supervisors at the time thought it was terribly unsafe to put anybody near 309 because of the speed of cars. but
Right.
people
They're on
really
it
let
anyway.
Now they're on it, so
Yeah, they're
we're
on
trying to get them off and
Yeah.
at least give them a sidewalk.
give them a place that's safe where they
Yeah.
can actually walk.
Kids don't understand that.
No,
Understood.
Lemon.
and I think there are a lot of parents in the audience who would agree, that their kids, they ride their bikes, they walk with their friends, and they congregate in these areas all along 309, and we need to make it safer. So I think that from my perspective, would be the preference between the two options.
That's my priority.
Any other thoughts, Audrey, Annette?
Now, I just wanted to ask it. So I heard someone mention about maybe turning it. So versus getting to that point where it's a really,
pinch point.
yeah. Is there a way that it can kind of go over
Turn the corner.
Right.
Yeah.
Look at an alternative to do that.
If the board liked that option, I'm sure that
Just like to see what
you could direct the engineer to work with the applicant's
Right.
engineer to figure out a way to make
If
that.
people
to
see
make
the
that
turn, they're going to go that way. They're going to think, oh, this is the way to go. Rather than going to a dead end, they're going to think, well, I'm supposed to go here.
I understand.
Yeah.
As I said, we'll do whichever alternative the board wants.
Yeah, between the two.
That would be a
I
good
do like
concession.
that choice.
I'll be in the minority and go with option 2, but I'm in the minority, so majority will overrule. I grew up just off of Roosevelt Boulevard, and I do anything I can to stay away from those very busy streets. I know how to maneuver it, know how to cross it, know how to do all of that, but I tend to stay away from that, just safety reasons. The other option 2 I see as serving more people in the long run once the Windsor goes in and all the different things that are happening back in there. But the majority rules. So
I see the Windsor will be retirement community. So I'm not sure if there'll be as much pedestrian. There will be some, but as much.
no, it depends on
Yeah. The ages,
retirement,
yeah.
what the age
More
is.
than a retirement.
I know it is.
From what I-
Sure.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that the
We also
the
don't have it-
demographic is not families with kids. It's what I'm saying.
We probably don't have another opportunity to get through the mall that way or Airport Square that way as well.
Hmm.
But
That's why we need
whatever everyone
both.
thinks. Yeah, that's why we need both. Right.
One other question I had about the waivers. Are we done on the matter of the sidewalk option?
So it sounds like the majority of the board is choosing the first option with the caveat that the engineer will work with the applicant's engineer to figure out a way to track people from going to the dead end and curving more towards the inside of the property at the end.
Maybe putting one of the trees there, a bush or something
Perhaps.
to keep them from going there. Seriously. Yeah.
So waiver number 10 was to waive the bollard requirement for the parking spaces. And I just had a question because it wasn't clear to me that whether or not those bollards would be by the building itself, by the structure itself. What the way it was described, I wasn't sure. Like Jim, maybe you could weigh in on this too. And can you bring that up on the plans? Is that
So really the area we're talking about is here where we have this sidewalk connection. So that's where we have parking adjacent to a sidewalk. So in lieu of bollards there, we're gonna
Okay.
widen, right now it's showing us 5 foot. We agreed that we'll go to 6 foot sidewalk there
okay?
to limit the overhang, or if there is car overhang, you'll still have pedestrian accessibility beyond that. So this is the area where we have the parking adjacent to the sidewalk where we're asking for the waiver.
And so we'll have those cement.
There'll be a
We'll,
curb.
but will they also have the cement or no?
No, it'll be just curb. There won't
Just
be-
curb.
Wheel stops become tripping hazards, and then we
Oh,
don't get
that's true.
drug into lawsuits, which we don't like. So
Mm-hmm.
we stay away from. But again, if you have a car that parks up against the curb and your wheels hit, usually about 2 foot is what you account for, and then you've got 4 foot. Even if it's 3, you've got a 3 foot accessible path beyond that. So that's why we've agreed to a 6-foot sidewalk up through this area.
What about the pickup truck that back in and go all the way back? That's a little more, right?
I mean, we could even pull this off a little bit. You know, what happens is, okay, what do I do with that little, 1 to 2 foot area in there? It's hard to grow grass. So that's usually why you just put the sidewalk right up against the curb.
Okay.
I'm okay with that waiver then, if it's, as long as it, we have adequate protection in front of, the building itself. Are there any parking
No,
spots?
there's no head-in parking
There is no,
along
okay.
any of this.
Okay, great.
So that's why I said the waiver request is really only for this section.
Okay, just for that.
of
Yep.
parking / sidewalk.
Okay. And the sidewalks there. So I think
Okay.
you've worked everything out then.
No, and other than that, the resolution has the standard provisions for the board's consideration. And it sounds like the option would be option 1 for the sidewalk.
Right, and option 1 for the sidewalks is fine. The only thing we're going to need to talk about is, I know you had said that during one of our conversations that how much time do you need to get those releases from the lenders and the lessors?
Again, I think we can work that out administratively. Again, I think the idea that as long as your client's willing to sign off and then hold that in escrow, and we know that it's signed and that it's willing, that your client's willing to do it if they're able to, then that should be the only issue that we would need at that time.
Okay, everybody good? All right, then I'm going to move to adopt resolution number 2024-19, approving the preliminary final land development application with requested waivers submitted by RE Plus Airport Square LLC, care of the Wilder Companies Ltd. We are choosing option 1 for the sidewalk.
And in paragraph 9 needs to be very, very slightly amended to talk about that
Curve
opportunity to get
to turn the corner.
Turn the corner.
Oh, no, and the
Yeah.
easements.
The two things that we'll be able to work out administratively is the turning the corner on the sidewalk and paragraph 9 related to the holding in escrow, the approvals until the lenders are able to confirm that they support the landowner's decision, just as if it was your mortgage company and you're
Correct.
trying to give away land on your property.
Okay,
Second.
any public comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, number 8, Aston Enterprises, 109 Holly Drive, preliminary final land development. Marianne Connell.
So we have the applicant here tonight. They are proposing to subdivide an existing 50,000 square foot parcel within the R2 residential district into 2 lots by reestablishing the original property lines from the 1962 subdivision. They're proposing to remove the existing house and swimming pool and construct 2 new single-family detached dwellings to be served by public water and sanitary sewer. Township staff and consultants have had the opportunity to review the details of the land development plan, and the corresponding review letters and waiver requests are in your packet. It also went before the Planning Commission at their August 15th, 2024 meeting, and those minutes are included in your packet as well. If the board chooses to grant preliminary final approval, they will need to do so by adopting a resolution, which has been drafted by the Township Solicitor's Office. And we have a gentleman here tonight representing the applicant.
Thank you. Good evening, Scott Camburn with Irwin and Walter. I am representing Dave Caracozza of Aston Enterprises, who's unfortunately not be able to be with us tonight. As Marianne stated, it's a lot residential subdivision at 109 Holly Drive, and it's reestablishing the original property lines that were from the 1962 subdivision.
So I guess some clarification, because the Planning Commission was very concerned about making purchasers aware. And You had
Sure.
talked about how we would deal with that.
So there's a specific condition. Oftentimes what would happen is that right now this is one parcel. And if you were to record a document saying, for example, you have to maintain your trees as a landowner, or you can't increase your impervious as a landowner. If that was recorded on this when it's one parcel and then it's divided into two parcels as part of the subdivision process, then a title company might not pick up easily that that provision is on actually both of the parcels as intended. The condition will be that those restrictions are actually going to be imposed on both parcels after they're subdivided, and the county creates the two parcel numbers for both. So as a result, when you go to buy one of these houses and you do a title search, it'll be very easy for the title company or anyone who's looking at what's recorded against that particular parcel to see that there are these restrictions filed against that particular parcel. And it would be more clearly made known for them, which is very common of what we do with stormwater management agreements. Although this property does not have a stormwater management agreement because of the covenant that's being imposed, sort of in lieu of that, it should be sufficient for anyone who's using a title company to purchase property, for that to be noted.
So the covenant will travel with the land, but separate, but kind of still cross, or?
So historically, the covenant itself says that it runs with both, but you would actually, if you only bought one parcel, you would have to go back to when it was subdivided to find out it still runs with that particular parcel. Now it's directly on that parcel. So it would be very easy to find both the tree covenant to maintain the landscaping and the restriction related to the additional impervious surface. So I think that will address that particular issue of a landowner purchasing a property and then not knowing, oh, wait, I can't put on additional impervious. I can't put on a patio. I have to maintain the trees. It should be very clear in title that runs with that particular property.
Didn't the county, I'm looking for the note here, but didn't the county indicate that this was in their records or on the original plan as two separate lots?
I think at one point it was, and then it was consolidated. And I believe, as Mr. Culver just said, that this is the original parcel line being put back in.
That's the original subdivision.
Right. So it's being put back to what it was years ago. And again, as part of this, two houses are being constructed as well. So it's not just a subdivision. Right. Two new houses are being constructed. So it's also a land development aspect for that.
Okay.
Also, during the planning commission meeting, there was some conversation with Mr. Caracaza about another disclosure, a picture, what did we say?
An exhibit.
An exhibit that buyers would have to sign at the time of the agreement so that they're aware that there are these deed restrictions. Because even if it is put in the deed, sometimes people really, if your realtor or your title company isn't paying attention, they're not going to know until they try to come in and put in a permit. So some sort of exhibit is what we talked about at the planning commission, which I think would really be helpful.
So with the last submission, we did submit two exhibits for lot 1, lot 2 allowable impervious surface. And this was the lot 1. And it just spelled out, the house dwelling size, driveway, lead walk, and their allowable future impervious surface with an area and a tally, how it's memorialized through the final process, but here's an exhibit for the future homeowner.
And the buyer would have to sign that.
Sure.
Okay. Because the big discussion was that there's not a ton of space if someone wanted to add a deck or a pool, or we just wanted to make people aware. So I like the exhibit. Thank you.
I was concerned about the lack of sidewalks. I think that, regardless of what's the conditions that exist throughout the rest of the neighborhood, this is an opportunity to make it more pedestrian friendly on this big, lot area. And I think it enhances the overall, not only the properties, but the neighborhood as well. I would like to see sidewalks.
Just go back to the original subdivision. I can,
And I know that planning commission, or the, not the planning commission, but the, well, the Montgomery County Planning Commission noted the same in their remarks.
pulled up a surrounding features plan, which shows the entire community, the Holly Drive, entire roadway system. And there is no sidewalks currently today on either side of Holly Drive or the adjacent roadways
Yeah, the whole.
leading into the. You do have a little bit of sidewalk on an adjacent subdivision. I'm not sure the name of the road, but it's right off of Lansdale Avenue. But throughout this entire area, that would be the only sidewalk.
The existing house has a pool in the back. Did I hear that
Correct.
as well? So that would be filled in and then you'd build. So it's one house, one pool. It'll be now two houses separated.
That's correct. Get to the existing features plan.
There don't seem to be a lot of street trees.
So this is the existing features plan. It was an existing larger ranch style home, had two driveways, well, a through driveway. Driveway came in, across the front of the house and back out. And it had a large pool area in the back, shed, patio. And this is the proposed landscaping plan. Street trees across the entire frontage. Trees along the common property lines, proposed and existing. And there are some existing trees that will remain.
Yeah.
Part of the waiver, one of the waivers is for sidewalks, two street trees to be located within 1 foot on the inside of the ultimate right of way. There are these two trees. And the reason for that, there is an existing storm sewer easement that goes diagonally across the frontage of the property. We did not want to put the trees within the existing easement. These three trees right here are also of concern that they're in the right of way, but they're also within the sight line. So we're going to move those street trees behind the drainage easement in this area.
What does anyone think? Any comments? I'm good with the deed restriction. I'm good with the picture addendum thing that they're gonna have to sign. The sidewalk, I'm not sure. There's none anywhere in that neighborhood, so putting it in front of those two houses, it could be a tripping hazard. You know, I don't know. There's absolutely none.
And it's not like the other developments where we're gonna have future movement to put them in.
We have where there hasn't been sidewalks before, like along, was it around Knapp Road and Knapp and Lansdale. In that particular area, we had a similar situation and we insisted on the sidewalks there.
Yeah, the traffic closer to Lansdale Avenue and Knapp Road is also adjacent to, it's a more well-traveled road than this, as well as it's very close to Knapp Elementary School. This is close to Fellowship Park. You can see the edge of it right there as well. But I walk this neighborhood routinely. It's very close to my house, and I walk in the street because there are no sidewalks, and I've never had a problem. So
you'd be okay.
I'd be okay. And there aren't trees that are large trees or bushes or anything close to the road, which would prohibit, because it is on a curve,
Right.
but there's good visibility. So I've always felt very safe in this.
Okay. Well, I can.
Yeah.
I know.
I think it was more important for us to get those sidewalks on Knapp Road and the busier
Thoroughfare.
Yeah, getting there.
thoroughfares.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this is
This is a
quiet old neighborhood.
Yep.
So if we can let it go.
I can let it go.
Okay. Audrey, anything?
No, I'm good. I'm okay to let it go too.
All right. Then I'm going to move that we adopt resolution number 2024-20, approving the preliminary final land development application with requested waivers for Aston Enterprises LLC.
Second.
Any public comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Number 9, proposed amendments to covenants and restrictions for Gwinnett Point Homeowners Association. John Walco, Esquire,
Yes.
Township Solicitor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On August 27th, 2024, the township received correspondence from Attorney Stefan Richter, who represents the Gwinnett Point Homeowners Association. He advised that the township's governing body, pursuant to a requirement when that Gwinnett Point was originally approved for land development, there was a condition saying that whenever you amend your homeowner's declaration, you have to come back to the township. Again, even if it doesn't have anything to do with the township's rights, anytime there's an amendment, you have to come back to the township. Currently, they're proposing an amendment that would stop short-term rentals within the community and ensure that only a portion of the community would be leased to ensure that there's enough home ownership by persons that occupy their home and own the home. And they would like to amend their homeowner's declaration to provide for that requirement for the community. And therefore, they're coming for the board as they're required to do for their approval. The Township Solicitor's Office, have reviewed the documents and we found no objection to what they're requesting, and certainly nothing that's detrimental to the township or the township's ability to enforce what they would need to enforce within that community.
So we're not agreeing on what they're proposing. We're just, because this was written into their documents way back, and they have to come before us.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I just know that.
This isn't we're not monitoring. We're not changing anything. This is their decision as a private homeowners association. Because of how the system was set up when it was originally approved, it has to come back before the board for the approval. So it would be the motion to allow them to approve the amendment that they're requesting related to short-term rentals and the percentage of leased units within the community.
So moved.
Any public comment? All in favor?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Going into Parks and Rec. Number 10 is discussion on the refurbishment of the farmhouse at Windlestray Park. Floyd Schaefer, Director of Community and Rec Center.
It's my pleasure to introduce Maura Giordano, who is our Vice President of the Parks and Rec Board, and she's going to introduce the architects that put together the feasibility study that we have worked on over probably just about a year now.
Good evening, Board of Supervisors. My name is Maura Giordano, and I'm a member of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board for the Township, and it is my honor to be here on behalf of the board to provide you with a brief update on the work accomplished over the last several months regarding the Windlestray Farmhouse. In late August of 2023, you approved a motion for a feasibility study to be conducted for the potential renovation of the Windlestray farmhouse. The vision of the board was to create a multi-purpose space that can be used for educational classes, exhibits, and events. The advisory board met with Phillips and Donovan Architects on many occasions over the past year, and the firm assisted us in fine-tuning our goals for the farmhouse space after inspection of the building and some of its limitations. In collaboration with Joe Phillips and Jim Linsky and their experience across our region working on similar projects, we are excited to present renderings for the proposed renovation tonight. I'd like to introduce Joe Phillips and Jim Linsky of Phillips and Donovan to take you through the proposed plans for the farmhouse renovation in Windlestray Park. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome.
I'm Joe Phillips. This is Jim Linsky, and we're with Phillips and Donovan Architects. As was mentioned, we were retained to conduct a feasibility study for the vision of the Windlestray farmhouse, which was to create multi-purpose space that can be used for educational classes, exhibits, events, nature programs, art programs, cultural programs, and other events. We have a number of photos which we're going to take you through pretty quickly. We can always come back to them if there's questions. The good stuff is at the end.
Okay, with that being said, the first thing that we did was to actually go out and survey the property, survey the building, take some photographs of the existing building, its existing conditions and configurations. These are the actual photographs we took. This is one side of the building. Let me see if I can get this to fit. This is kind of the other gable end of the building. What am I doing wrong? You can see the original stone farmhouse. In front of it, there is some wood frame additions that were put on at a much more recent time. Let me. Ooh. This is the other side of the building. The one thing that's interesting from this photograph, you can see in the original, the older portion of the building with the stonework, you can literally see there were three portions of historically of the building. It was built in three different phases before the small wood frame portions. The lower level on the right, lower level on the left, and then a second story. It's because of there were some other problems we ran into. Each one of these additions was done at different levels. They never aligned existing floors with each other, with future additions, past additions, which lend itself to some problems. This is the other side of the building, the other gable end, which is quite nice. I mean, there's some existing bones here that are quite nice. The stonework is in relatively good condition. Then we get into the interior of the building. One thing it's worth noting, like every good old stone farmhouse, it has an old stone foundation, basement, crawl spaces, which are just notorious for having moisture, mold, and water problems. There's another fun basement picture. Excuse me, I'm having difficulty. Maybe if I just do it like that, or I'll use the arrows. This is an interior shot, one of those small additions that was put onto the side of the stone building. And then once we get inside, you can see there's actually some very nice spaces. They actually expose some of the stone. There's a old wood burning stove built in there. But the other thing you'll notice, look at the thresholds of the doors into the openings. Rooms just are not at the same elevation. They're not at the same level. There's another great picture to emphasize that point. There's multiple levels exiting out of the space that we're looking at here into what I believe was the original main living space of the original portion of the building. A big, beautiful stone fireplace. You can just imagine the large hearths and fires that they had in over the years. Though you will notice the wide plank wood floor, how it's cupping and distorting, largely because of moisture problems in that foundation below. Some beautiful pictures of staircases just kind of overlapping each other in an Escher-like fashion.
Sure not to code.
It's not up to code.
This is all leading somewhere, obviously.
This is leading somewhere. Again, you can see some of these pretty interesting looking entrances into some of these spaces, stairs into rooms from side to side. So it's a real tangled nest of spaces. This is interesting. This is one photograph. These are not two pictures put together. This is one photograph. There are two stairs, pie-shaped wedge stairs.
It worked for somebody at some point, right?
It made sense at one time, I'm
Right.
sure. Just like my house, right? And then the attic space. This is actually a very cool photograph.
Oh, I like that.
Unfortunately, you don't see the detail of some of the stonework. We have not had a structural engineer through the building yet, so there are some issues we need to look at and contend with in the existing attic space. But it was a cool picture, so I thought I would share it with you. What we then did from our on-site survey was prepare a set of existing building drawings. This is a foundation drawing. To the left of this is a basement area. Over here is a crawl space, and then these are the slab on grade building additions. This is more or less what the first floor level. We can see multiple different rooms and levels. This is probably that original portion with that big stone fireplace. This was the second addition, and then they put a third over top of those two spaces. And then these are the slab on grade wood frame building additions. There is a second floor, third floor, whatever, attic space level, if you want to call it, above that, and then an upper attic level. And then some existing building elevations we surveyed and documented.
And you can see from the windows where the floor lines are, because the windows are
They're all different levels.
Different levels.
So then from this, oops. If you want to.
Just quickly, after we measured the building and took our photographs and did our as-built drawings that you just saw, we sat down with the park board and went through, what are the program elements that you want to include in the building, the meeting spaces, support spaces, and so on. So all that to say is we created a written program of space requirements, met with them first, soaked up as much info as we could, came back with a written program, and then reviewed that and then tweaked that. So that's how we got to the spaces, the meeting spaces and toilet room, kitchenette, storage spaces, things like that, that are included in the building that we'll get to in the images.
All right, so once the program was developed, after meeting with the team, we developed a couple of, actually we did quite a few different ideas. Bear with me. Yeah. Why can't I zoom out? There we go. Now we're working. Oh, it is touch. Nice. The first idea that we had was to go in and rather than try and work with all those existing floor levels that were piecemealed into this building, was literally to remove those floor levels, create one consistent floor level on grade level, one consistent second floor level. What you see here are the first floor plans and a lower floor plan, the second floor plans above. Those green spaces are kind of the usable multi-purpose space program spaces, if you will. To the right, we were proposing removing those existing small additions and building a new addition, the purpose of which was really to serve as core elements to these multi-purpose spaces. So it's the whole sequence of entry into a lobby area. And then from that, we could have access to a stair tower that would take us to the second floor or a new elevator. Once we started thinking about this and thinking about the relatively small area of the usable spaces compared to the cost of the construction of the new spaces, 2 stories, elevators, stair towers, 2-story building would require fire protection. These are all costly items for relatively small square footage of usable space. So then we came up with another idea. What if we completely removed, again, fill in the basement with stone, pour a new concrete slab at grade level, remove the second floor over in the existing building and all those intermediate levels in the existing building. Let's build a slightly larger building addition with another multi-purpose room space with all of the other core and support elements. We had storage rooms for each multi-purpose room. There are restrooms in this area, a mechanical space, and the whole entry sequence of a vestibule into a lobby or small reception area. And this was something that we all really liked. By doing this, we could eliminate the requirements and needs for an elevator, for fire-rated stair towers, for the sprinkler system, which are big money items for a building of this size. And at the end of the day, we kind of thought that this might be more cost-effective doing it this way on 1-story building as opposed to a 2-story building, while being able to preserve essentially the massing of this 2-story, multi-story existing farmhouse, removing some of those not necessarily beautiful additions that were on there and creating a new building addition. So with that, we started taking the design a little bit further. You can see the stone farmhouse, which is still essentially the original portion here in place, with a new 1-story addition. Underneath this roof here is that multi-purpose space. There would be a vestibule into a lobby area between the 2 areas with some support underneath that. So just kind of moving around the building, you can kind of see some of the architecture here. We believe the style of architecture blends itself into the existing building without trying to replicate the existing building, without trying to replicate a time and period of history that the original building addition pieces were designed. We're preserving that there is an existing, what would you call a terrace area on the side. We're preserving that, rebuilding that, making that part of the new entry sequence into this new vestibule. From that vestibule, which is in the background here, into a new lobby entry area. You can see on the right that little recessed niche, if you will, where that wood burning stove was set into that stone wall. This is a new skylit open lobby area. There would be meeting spaces on one side and meeting spaces on the other side of the lobby. This is an interior rendering of what that new meeting room could look like. There would be access onto the outside, new glass wall. There you can see off to the right side, there would be a small kitchenette, access into storage rooms. And this isn't a large space. It's approximately 30 by 30.
But one of the important things that came out of the programming, not just size, but the connection to the outdoors and the connection to nature for depending on what kind of activities that were going to happen there. So
that's kind of that corner from the outside. You can see we're proposing a new terrace area, kind of, reflecting what's on the other side of the building, allowing grade access. And this is an interior perspective of the existing building. You can imagine here, we left all the existing openings in their same place, but we've removed all the interior floors at all their different levels and created one big volume of space here. This is just one big room now. We're trying to maintain that fireplace and that character in that stone and leaving it exposed. Based on that design, we created a schematic phase level of design documentation that we could then share with our cost estimator. And these are just multiple floor levels. This is actually a demolition plan of demoing some of the existing portion of the building. Here's some demolition elevations. You can see where we have those small additions dotted in, representing that they're being removed from the building. And we have proposed the new floor plans, a new roof plan. There's an outline specification put onto the sheet, as well as some proposed new building elevations. And again, these drawings were prepared specifically to share with our cost estimator, who developed about a 20-page outline of cost involved with this project. It was summarized here in 3 pages. Let me see if I can get in. And this is a summary and a breakdown in a CSI format, which is essentially a 16-part format involving all levels of construction. And at the bottom is a summary, and the total that he came up with was approximately $1.47 million was the total for the feasibility study cost estimate. Now, bear in mind, this is based on our pretty drawings and renderings and some outline drawings. It does not include anything beyond the specific area of the building. There's no other site improvements or utility improvements or parking associated with this. It was kind of assumed as we were progressing along, we could use some of the existing infrastructure on the property itself, on the park property.
Doesn't include any issues you may encounter along the way in taking things down and that kind of thing as well, correct?
Pardon?
That price doesn't take into effect any problems you may encounter when you're demoing things or
Right.
moving things.
Yes.
Well, there's always
Well, there is some
there's always a
contingency.
contingency in a cost estimate at this early stage. There's, I think he's
10%.
10% now. As you would move through the project and the drawings got more detailed, that would come down. So, you know, the cost estimate gets fine tuned. There's overhead and profit and bonding costs in there. So, you know, we've worked with this cost estimator for a long time, and he tends to be a little conservative, which is good at this point. So between being a little conservative and always carrying a contingency, which if the project went forward and you did put it out to bid and go for construction, we would recommend that you still can carry some contingency, because as much as we try to catch everything, some things just
Sure.
happen as soon as you open up an old building.
Mhm.
And most of us may have renovated a building so yeah, so you know how that is. But
Forgive us if we're gun shy, but the
Yeah.
last few years, everything we order, everything we try to do, the costs have just come back crazy higher than what was expected. So
That's not uncommon.
it's the world we're in right now.
yeah, it's hard to predict. I don't want to be overconfident, but we have been, working with this cost estimator. He's been pretty good. We just had a bid come in for a municipal project that was pretty much right where it should have been. But again, this is no pressure, but you wait 5 years, this is not going to be the cost.
Correct.
We'll have to add escalation and things of that nature. But I think what Jim was trying to warn you of is, we're dealing with the building here. We didn't create new parking lots or anything like that. There's across the creek is a parking lot. So, we didn't go crazy with site work here. We didn't have that info.
And you're completely filling in the basement,
Yes.
completely stone, and then a new
That's what
pad,
I'm-
so we don't have to worry that the ugly basement is hurting the upstairs anymore.
And we put in a new vapor barrier so that we're not going to have any of that seeping through that concrete slab. I think it's probably the most cost-effective way and probably the best way long-term to deal with it. I mean, we know farmhouses, stone
Yeah,
farmhouses,
they're wet and moldy.
they're wet and moldy. And, you know, the basement isn't deep enough to really do anything with, even if we were to try to reestablish it, and it's not that large. The other portion's a crawl space, so you're always going to have an issue with that. And they're dirt floors, floor crawl space in a
Right.
building, you're going to have mold problems. So, you know, our thought was just fill it in with stone, pour a new concrete slab on top of it, put in a proper vapor barrier, and, you know, let's revitalize the building and give it a new life.
What would the time frame be, given if you didn't find any awful surprises along the way? How long would it take?
To construct that,
You including planning for it, you mean?
Yeah.
So let's talk out loud here.
Because we're gonna need to budget for this and figure it out.
So I think, you know, from the time we were given authorization to move forward into the next phases, which would be design development, construction documents, then you would authorize it to bid, and then there would be construction. I think you got to figure somewhere in 4 to 6 months in that planning stage. You get out to bid, which is minimum a month. We like to have it out. You award is another month, so now we're 6 to 8 months before you have anything awarded, if everything goes smoothly, and then, you know, probably at least 10 months, if not a year of construction. So a year and a half, round numbers, before you could have anything done.
Right.
And that's if everything goes
Correct.
really smoothly and well.
There's not an Indian burial ground under there or something
Well,
scary
we're working
happens.
on the
The
footprint,
turtles
so,
don't live there.
I mean, we do want to reestablish that terrace in the front and a little bit in the back. And, you know, there's the little proposal or report that the park board did was good. I mean, they want to do something with the well that's there and do some exterior kind of signage and informational things as well. So that has to be figured out. But, you know, other than digging in an area that's already been dug in, I don't think we're going to go too far afield from the existing.
The nice thing is there are a lot of grants available for this type of project. And I mean, there are historic renovations that are going on, municipal historic renovations. So it's going to be, you know, like churches that are being renovated, farmhouses that are being renovated for municipal use that have been awarded grants for a large portion of the cost of the project. So near us too. One's recently in Amber, another one just in North Wales-Borough.
It's lovely. I mean, I think it.
It's that easy to move it from that to done. It's that easy to move it from that to done.
But it, you know, I think one of the things that came up in the park board was a big help in this as well is, you know, I kept saying the photographs you're showing us of spaces in your little proposal you put together are not what we're going to get if we just renovate it the way it is, because it's all broken up. The accessibility, you couldn't get to it. So in those meetings, it just came out of there. I'm not sure who said it first, but someone said, you know, what if we just gutted the whole thing? And we're like, that would be a great idea. And it just simplifies everything.
So you mentioned a structural engineer. Would that be the next thing you would send someone out just to make sure we don't have
That
to
would be
just
part of the next process.
lose the whole place?
We make assumptions, you know, in this stage. And as I said, usually this kind of feasibility study phase estimate is a little bit conservative, and there's at least a 10% contingency, which we have. But then we do bring in structural engineers, mechanical, electric, plumbing engineers, and usually just work with the township engineer for anything related to the site around it.
So another function of the budgeting that has to be addressed, which is not a part of the 1.4, is the FF&E. Would you address that and what's the, you know, that encompasses?
Right. We talked about ideas for displays and things like that within the building, educational things, historical things, furniture, tables, chairs, and so on. So
technology.
Yeah. we can certainly, as we move forward, work that into the budget. And we work with an interior design consultant as well, that they're not part of our business, but they're actually in our building. And a lot of our municipal projects, we've worked with them. And so we'll start to put together a furniture budget as well, things like that.
Yeah, I think it's great. I would love it if we could figure out how to budget and get as many grants as we can. And I think it would be a really nice addition and to preserve something. I certainly think we should continue the talks and figure out if we can do it.
Yeah, our historical society will be very interested in lending expertise and some of the history of this. There are people that really know the area, function, have possible ideas for furniture. We may even have some things that they could lend for that. So
That'd be
this would be
awesome.
really
Yeah, I mean,
great way to bring everything together.
be part of the process.
Yeah.
I want to take a moment to thank you for the work that you did in preparing the feasibility study. Being the liaison to the Parks Board, it was a real pleasure working with you on this. And one of the things that they weren't able to present this evening, but all the Parks Board got to experience was a virtual walkthrough of this design space, which was really fun, and it was just a whole other level of being able to experience the space as they envisioned it to be built out. So it was great. And we have a lot of our Parks Board members here with us this evening. Would you all rise, please? I just want to give you all a big hand. They invested so much time and energy. They took field trips out to other projects that had been done in other municipalities. They really gathered a lot of detail and put a lot of time and effort into, contributing to this feasibility study and really kind of envisioning how it might be used to benefit the township. And I just can't thank you enough for all of your time and effort on behalf of this project. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is it a well or a fire pit?
That's a well.
Okay, I was like, fire pit. That'd be cool. Burn it down right away.
All right, well, we'll do our best to figure out how to make this come to life.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Look
you very
forward to
much. It was a pleasure working with the board.
Public safety, we have National Preparedness Month and promulgate updates to emergency. Chief
Good evening.
Wegman.
Thank you. September is National Preparedness Month. This year's theme is Start a Conversation and focuses on discussing steps to get ready and stay safe during an emergency. These steps include setting aside time when everyone is calm and relaxed, holding discussions over set periods, and discussing preparedness actions. Montgomery Township Emergency Management staff conducts various trainings and exercises to prepare for, respond to, mitigate, and recover from disasters. The staff also obtains certifications through PEMA, including local, municipal, basic, advanced, and professional certifications, which PEMA does require for some members of the emergency management staff. Pennsylvania legislation requires that political subdivisions of the Commonwealth establish a local emergency management organization, which we have, and the organization is tasked with preparing, maintaining, and keeping current emergency operation plans. The Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency suggests that the emergency operation plan be updated at least every 2 years or when most of the governing body changes. While the EOP, Emergency Operation Plan, is continually updated as personnel and contact information changes, it was last updated in September of 2022. We have updated the plan. We have updated all annexes. They've all been reviewed, and all of our current assets, personnel with contact information, and procedures. The official promulgation form Ms. Rivas has to be signed tonight and adopted. Staff recommends that the Board of Supervisors recognize September as National Preparedness Month, promulgate the Emergency Operation Plan, and direct the Emergency Management Coordinator to distribute the updated materials as required.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody have any questions? All right, then. I'm going to move to recognize September as National Preparedness Month and to promulgate the Emergency Operations Plan, directing the Emergency Management Coordinator to distribute the updated materials as required.
Second.
Any public comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much for keeping us all prepared. All right, going into old business, we're going to talk about the Rose Twig bathroom project. I see lots of families here. Might as well start it off.
Good evening, everyone. Moment that you've been waiting for has arrived, and we are going to be talking about the proposed Rose Twig restroom at Windlestray Park. With us here this evening, we have Shannon Drosnock, the Executive Director of the Montgomery Township Municipal Sewer Authority, and I would invite her to come on up because I know everybody has questions about this particular project, and we can do a sort of brief overview of what brought us here today and where we're at with this project.
Thanks for coming out.
Thanks for having me. Good evening. I'm Shannon Drosnock, the Executive Director of MTMSA. As you know, and I believe you had discussion on it last week before you, last year in celebration of our 60th anniversary, the Sewer Authority would like to, had decided that they would like to give some kind of a gift to the township in recognition of being an authority for 60 years, being a member of the community, being a partner with all of you. And so several ideas were wrestled around, and the idea of putting a bathroom in one of the parks came up. We approached the township with it, offered a couple different places where it could potentially be. There seemed to be a lot of interest in putting it in the Rose Twig section of Windlestray Park. As you know, there's currently a restroom in the mall section, the mall, M-A-U-L-E, mall section of Windlestray Park. So then the Sewer Authority at that point in time was preparing their budget for 2024. And we had a budget estimate of somewhere in the 575 range, which was a rough estimate. So we went to our board, the Sewer Authority board, and said, what is your comfort level in terms of a donation to the township? And the Sewer Authority board was at a hardline comfort level of $500,000. So we said, okay, how do we move forward, not knowing what the bids would come in at? And so we approached the township staff back then and said, would you like us to go ahead and put the bids out, and you would have the option to cover the difference if it came in over $500,000, or would you like us to not consider that project and look at something else? And the consensus at the time was, go ahead and put the bids out, do what you can do, and let's see where we are. We'd like the option to consider funding the project above $500,000, depending on where those bids came in. So the bids did come back. They came back somewhere in the neighborhood of $650,000. I say that because included in the total project cost is engineering costs for inspection, which we won't have the hard costs for until the project happens. But we did have the hard costs for the actual building itself, the construction and establishment of it, running the water line. The Township Sewer Authority staff would install the sewer line for it. And then the electric to have it to be a 4-season or an all-year-round restroom came in at approximately $650,000, give or take. The other situation presented was that the restroom itself would be ADA accessible in the plan and what was bid, but the site was not considered from an ADA standpoint to get from the parking lot to the restroom. And so I believe that's what was presented before you last week for discussion, is we would be somewhere around $150,000 plus whatever would need to be done if you wanted to make the site accessible, handicap accessible to the restroom. So Ms. Bamford came back, she's the liaison, of course, to the Sewer Authority, and said, okay, what can we do based on the board here? The recommendation was, would the Sewer Authority board consider an additional $100,000? The Sewer Authority board was not in a position to do that, specifically because I think their feeling on it was, they're already outside of their scope, right? This isn't a sewer project, and we have a 20-year-old facility that we're putting our money into, which is our charge from our ratepayers. So to go outside of our budget for something that's really not in line with our direct need as a sewer authority, we could redirect the money in a different way. But we did agree, the Sewer Authority Board did agree to have our engineers, CKS engineers, do a site study for ADA accessibility. At the engineering site study would be at the cost of the Sewer Authority. Now, obviously, this all happened Wednesday night. It wasn't fast enough for us to turn around a full site plan to you by Monday, but we were able to get a rough estimate cost, which they feel is a pretty conservative cost, meaning they don't expect it would come in above that. They expect it would come in below that. And that would be based upon putting a parking spot directly adjacent to where this restroom facility would go. So, you would go through the regular large part of the parking lot, you would go upon this driveway, and then there would be a parking spot right along that driveway directly across from the softball fields that would accommodate an ADA spot. And only one spot was needed based on the size of the restroom. That cost estimate was $25,000. So I feel like that gives you a better idea in terms of the scope of the project. That would make the range somewhere in the 175 neighborhood for this board to consider. The Sewer Authority Board did graciously make the option to have a special meeting that they will be having on Monday night, because we don't have time to wait until our next meeting legally to accept or reject the bids. So what we need in front of your board tonight is really for you as the elected officials to decide how you want to proceed. The Sewer Authority Board is willing to donate up to a maximum of $500,000 for the installation of the restroom. Any cost above that, if the project would move forward, would need to be voted on for the township to absorb those costs. So if you would vote in favor of absorbing those costs, then we would go back at our special meeting, and before our board would be a recommendation to accept the two bids and move forward with the project. If you would decide you're not interested in pursuing the project, which is certainly your right to do so, then in our October 1st board meeting, we would recommend for our board to reject the bids and then just move forward outside of that project.
Any questions for Shannon?
I think I'm going to ask about the prefabricated building.
Yes.
From the way this is written, that's already been purchased, even though
it's already been secured through CoStars and a deposit has been done. If the township was to not fund the project, the Sewer Authority would only be exposed for the amount of the deposit, and then we would abandon the project.
Okay, because the rest of the question was going to be, wait a minute, you bought this and we didn't really know if this was going to go forward. Okay.
Yeah, we were in a little pickle timing wise. There's a build out time to build the restroom. And so the only way to be able to coordinate, if the project was to move forward, the only way to be able to coordinate having the building done in time at the same time that you're legally constrained by the bid documents was to secure the building in advance of the bid documents. Bid documents have a shorter time span for that construction to start, or you would be pushing it another year out to be able to do it the other way.
I guess it comes down to finance. Affordability of the 175, let's call it 200,000 just to round numbers. Where do we get that from? Obviously, I think we all said last time around, this is something that we'd like to see. This is something that would benefit everyone who's using that park, the softball teams, baseball teams. Affordability is where it comes to. Where's that bottom line, and how do we come up with that?
Well, we had earmarked. I mean, last year in the part as a part of the budgeting process, there were funds, and this was a conversation that Carolyn had with Shannon, where she indicated that we had sort of earmarked these funds within the capital fund for this project. I think I don't know that it was 175,000, but I mean, clearly we anticipated that we may need to fund a portion of this, and I believe those accommodations were made.
That's my understanding.
Is that your understanding, Brian? Do you know?
I wasn't a part of those conversations, so I don't know.
I've seen the email exchange if it helps.
I didn't.
So Brian, if we spend this money or agree to spend this money, we're not having to rob Peter to pay Paul, there's not some other project that we have to say no to, or something that we had planned, that this would change that?
At the end of the day, projects are approved by the Board of Supervisors. You know, I present the budget to you in the email that I sent out this morning or this afternoon to Tanya, Ms. Bamford's request. The current capital investment plan is not funded past 2026. And this project wasn't included. You know, the previous discussion that we had with the farmhouse, that's not in there as well. So the board, to answer your question just bluntly, the board has two options, or there could be others, but in this type of scenario, either you would cut projects or raise additional revenues to fund future projects. Now, the township, as I indicated in the email today, the township did raise taxes in beginning of 2024 to help fund the current capital investment plan, and that's incorporated in the numbers, but still based on the 5-year plan by 2026, 2027, to help with the current infrastructure that we have to maintain and do the other projects as planned. There has to be some discussion on that by the board.
And we don't really know how much Carolyn felt that she was committing to this. She just said
I
there
don't know. I can tell you at the time, as indicated last year when we got the original budgeted figures, estimated budget figures, it looked to be about 575. And that's the point at which we said the sewer authority board would be comfortable to about 500. So I'm assuming based on that she had in her head around the $75,000 number. I can't say that for sure, but that was the budget, you know, presented at that time.
So is there any way that, or it sounds as if a decision has to be made like now on this
Correct. You either
versus
have to accept to commit to fund the difference, or not commit to fund the difference, in which case then we would either approve, or it would be recommended to the board to either approve or reject those bids.
and then when I mean about making a decision now, just having an opportunity. So I wasn't here last month. I'm hearing all of this for the first time, but just to have an opportunity to, you know, we're getting ready to embark on budget talks.
Right.
And so to have a little bit of conversation, you know, with our finance person, with our manager, so that we can see, okay, where can we rob Peter to pay Paul to do this versus, okay, yes, we'll do it right now. And I feel like I don't have all the answers to give it, where I think this is wonderful. And
Right.
thank you to all of you for what, you know, you're willing to give to us. I would love to make this happen. I just don't feel like I have enough to say, yeah, let's do it. And I don't know what kind of money we have to play with yet.
I did have that conversation with Carolyn, and that this would not have a negative impact on our budget. This was not finding, you know, the additional $100,000, say, to bring this to reality wasn't going to have a negative impact on any other project in our budget.
It seems to me that there's such an opportunity here that offering us the $500,000 to make this happen for one of our parks is just like, you know, such a huge gift that you're giving us. And you know, the investment we have to make into this is something that unfortunately we didn't anticipate. So it's kind of grown a little bit. That's what's making our decision harder. So we don't want to seem like we're ungrateful or that, you know, geez, but it's hard to say this as, you know, we want to be stewards of our budgets.
Absolutely.
And we don't want to give Brian a heart attack in his last week here at work. So we want to make sure that we're being responsible on that and making sure that we have thought about what are the impacts of this. It sounds as if you've had conversations that make me feel more comfortable with this. You know, but again, I don't have evidence of that, so it's kind of harder to see that. But I want to say, your word is valuable to me. But you know, I do also want to hear from the community, and I think we'll have an opportunity for people to speak about that as well. So I think that is something.
Does anybody have additional questions for me?
I do.
Yeah.
One, is there any option of not accepting the bids you have and pushing this to next year?
My recommendation to our board, and obviously I can't speak on behalf of the entire board, Dave Barrett, our board member, is here today as well. And certainly feel free to correct me at any point, Dave. My recommendation to our board, based on, as Ms. Long had said, we had already secured the co-stars agreement for the restroom, so we would lose that deposit. So my recommendation, my board would be, if we don't move forward now, to just abandon the project. Because at some point we've already spent some engineering money, we've already spent a deposit. I just, in good conscience, being stewards of the budget, in good conscience, can't say to my board, continue to postpone and spend more money for something that may or may not come to fruition that's outside of the scope of sewer, right? So we have to be the stewards of our dollars to be able to say, this really doesn't affect our plant. It doesn't affect our collection system. We're spending $6 and $7 million on our collection system. So we have some big ticket numbers. In the sewer world, if you're not familiar, you can't install a fan in a building. You need to install an explosion-proof fan. So it's $30,000 for a fan that you might buy at a Home Depot. So our costs are just astronomical in that way. So that's not to say, I speak for the entire board, but certainly from the
No,
staff
it makes sense.
standpoint.
It makes sense.
Also, as a part of that discussion at the sewer authority meeting, they really felt strongly, based on the components of the estimate and the bids that came in, that they weren't going to go down. So in another year, if you did go out to bid on this, it's only going to cost that much more.
That is the trend we are seeing for sure. As I'm sure that's the trend you're seeing.
We have to.
Yeah. Yeah. I know they spoke to that in the presentation last week as well.
And how long has your area been, the sewer authority, looking at presenting this to us? How long have you been working on this?
So we started the conversation back in June of last year. We just received the bids in August and took them immediately to your board. August 8th was our bid opening date. So in July, I did approach township staff about the ADA piece of it. And at that time, I did discuss with the township manager that there was potentially 3 options to do the site ADA work if needed. Did we want to adjust the bids while they were still out on the street for that? Or did we want to get the bids in and then deal with that, cross that bridge when we came to it, which is what the decision was made to do it. So as soon as we got our information August 8th, then we send it over to township staff.
Great. Thank you.
Well, for my own research and sanity today, I called about 20 people of varying ages to just ask them their thoughts, explained the gift, explained how much we were going to need to put toward it. And by varying ages, I didn't want to only talk to people whose kids would be on these fields. And I was kind of surprised. Everyone said yes, spend the money. But I was really surprised by some of the older folks who don't have kids here anymore, who said, yes, we walk in that park. Yes, we exercise there. It would really be great to have a bathroom. And I heard some viewpoints that I was shocked by. So I hate to spend the money that we weren't planning to spend, but it's such a nice gift that if we had to spend all of that money, we certainly wouldn't be able to do it. So I think maybe we should have some public comment, but I'm certainly in favor of it.
Thank you, Shannon.
Absolutely. If you need anything else.
And thank you for everything.
We'll take public comment. If anybody wants to come up and have any comments, feel free. Whether you're for or against it, I'm guessing if you're here, you're for it.
Sat through this whole meeting. Who's gonna come on
Here we
out?
go.
Just give us your name and address for the record.
My name is Jeremy Nabrowski, 218 Tudor Drive. I am the president of Montgomery Township Baseball and Softball Association. I'm also chairman of our Parks and Rec committee. So I'm only here for one thing, though. I'm Moira. Thank Moira for the farmhouse project. So as you can see, we have many members here of our MTBSA community. Many of them are softball players. We have coaches. We have board members. We have families that are in this community. So we keep on talking about our softball community, and we have a lot of young faces here in our softball community. We're trying to build that community back up. We had a time where we lost 2-3 teams. We didn't have a softball program. We're trying to build that program up, and it's with the youth of the program, and it's with committee members and township members that really want to support that. But also, you just made mention of it. We have other members of this community that use that park. We are I believe the proposed location is right next to the street hockey rink. We have tennis courts back there. We have a tot lot back there. We have soccer fields back there. We have basketball courts back there. It's not just MTBSA that would really enjoy a bathroom there. We talked about it at the last meeting where, actually, I'm sorry, it was at the Sewer Authority meeting, where we have members that are crossing Keenest Road to use family members' homes over there, which is not safe. We have members that are walking across over the mall, across a parking lot that's not safe. So to have a bathroom, a permanent bathroom in this location, we understand it's an expense to the township. It's a great gift from the Sewer Authority. We can't thank you enough for that. But to have this opportunity, something that we've been talking about for years. I know even before I probably even came to the community, we've been talking about this for years. It would be a huge asset to our already beautiful park system. So, I'm just kicking it off, and hopefully some of our other members will talk as well. But it is really the farmhouse project on one side of the park is great. To bookend that, a bathroom on the other side of the park is great. So we don't have to worry about porta-johns and what's in those porta-johns, and are those safe? Again, young families in this community want to use these parks. Older members of this community want to use these parks. They want to feel safe. And if we have a permanent bathroom there that they can use, they're going to feel much safer than using a porta-john. That's all I'll say.
This little girl over here was raising her hand. Do you have something to say to us? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Jason Ropars. I live at 105 Citadel Court, North Wales. Excuse my appearance, but I did just come from Rose Twig Park tonight. So Hannah is 7. She is part of the softball program, the Resurgent softball program. We've doubled our numbers at least in the last year, I think. The other thing I can tell you, again, having come from the field tonight, is there is just a large number of people walking around that park, the tennis courts, the playgrounds, the hockey rinks. On another note, with a 7-year-old with a small bladder, it is a long way to walk to the mall side of the park. We will not use the porta potties. I'm sorry, I am snooty.
Well said.
So again, personally, to me, thank you to the department for the donation. It's great. If the project doesn't happen with this donation, to me, it's never going to happen. Prices will only get higher. So again, I hope it's something you guys consider.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Patrick Brennan. I live at 129 Preston Drive. So I am a Montgomery Township board member. I also have an 11-year-old son who plays with Montgomery Township baseball. I just wanted to reiterate what Jeremy said. I mean, it's not just a softball program or for our softball program. He mentioned the hockey players, the tennis players, soccer players, basketball courts. There's also cricketers or cricketeers. Anyway, I'm not exactly sure what we call them, but they're out there, playing the sport of cricket. But I think one of the things that I heard tonight that really excited me about the program was the accessibility issue. Not just for persons with disabilities, but I think often a lot, and we thought about this summer when we got into 100-degree temperatures, and those grandparents who come out to see their kids play. And we saw firsthand how having a convenient structure like the one at Windlestray was important to those grandparents being able to come out and participate and see the sports that their grandchildren are playing in. So those senior citizens of ours who take those walks around the park, even though their kids may have aged out of Montgomery and moved on to bigger and better things, their grandkids are still playing in those parks. And when we think about just the availability of the parks and opening up the parks through having a more fixed and rigid structure like that, I think it makes it much more available to the people of our community, and who knows, maybe even drive up our softball and baseball numbers. So with that though, no, thank you for the opportunity to speak. We really appreciate what Montgomery Township does for our Montgomery Township Baseball and Softball Association, but really what it does for that Wendell Strait Park in general. I think we forgot about the, even though they're all the way on the other side, the disc golfers. Occasionally they do get lost and find their way over to Rose Twig, so we want to look out for them too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. Good evening. Thank you all. My name is Marcy DeSantis. I live at 113 Tudor Drive. I'm also a board member of MTBSA, and I just wanted to thank you all for considering this. Certainly, we're grateful for the generosity of MTMSA as well, and are really, really hopeful that you'll be able to consider this and approve this project. It's probably a long time, a lot of effort has gone into this, so we are quite thankful to both teams here. I think Jeremy mentioned many of the points that I was going to raise already, except for just one additional one that I'll just plug. And that is that, as a healthcare provider, that hand hygiene is so important to me. And the sinks and hot water and soap just can't be underestimated. So, that's just another added benefit of the restroom to cut down on the spread of infection. We're thankful that there's porta potties there, but this would really just, upgrade the level of facilities. So we're very hopeful and ask you to consider, please, this project.
Thank you.
Brian Deal, 102 Cadallas Court. Just listening to some of the other board members. I'm not a board member. I'm just a dad at coaches basketball, not baseball or softball. But I think they've shied away a bit from the impact this would actually have for the softball program, given their status on the board. I think they wanted to not emphasize that. But from a reality perspective, when you look at what the boys have on the baseball side over in Mall versus what the girls have, I've got one of each. I've spent a tremendous amount of time on the boys' side for the last 5 years because my son's older, and the amount of community time and family time that people spend over there is tremendous. I'm not saying a bathroom gets you all the way there, but it certainly is a piece to starting that softball program and getting the girls involved. And, there's no doubt that, team sports for girls is an incredible thing and puts them off on the right foot, right? And there's a lot of hurdles to getting the girls involved. And I think this is a way for the township to take one hurdle away. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Jess Jastrzemski. I'm from 103 Copperleaf Circle. Been a resident for 26 years, and I don't think this will happen without both teams working together. You have the sewer department offering $500,000. Next year, this project may be the whole million. With all due respect, it doesn't take a rocket science to see that if you move now, you save yourself $700,000 because they may not do it, but we need it. And you've heard that from everybody. And I'm the guy who walks my dog through that park daily. And sometimes I do need it. And it would be really nice to have something like this, because being a former member of the soccer club, we would run our tournaments over at Wendell Strait, and that bathroom was key. Everybody thought, wow, look at this. We have real grass and a bathroom, because other neighborhoods don't have that. You go over to Rose Twig, and it's not quite the same. To get the girls' softball side and the soccer and the cricketers and you know, pickleball, because we've been inundated with pickleball too over there, and that's an older sport also. So again, being part of the senior committee also, I I just think it's a go now if we can afford it, you know, and that's the big thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. I'm, sure.
One more thing for you to consider. Currently at Windlestrae, because of bathrooms, you have water and electric access. And I'm not sure if you realize at Rose Twig, you don't have any water or any electric access. So when you have an event such as Autumn Festival or something like that, in the evening when you have the fireworks and whatever, Rose Twig becomes not really an accessible park for you. In the wintertime, as soon as the clocks change anytime at night, or when they're doing the fields, or you have any kind of events where you would need water, you don't have that. So just keep in mind too, with the addition of the bathroom, if you were to move forward with the project, you do now extend electric and water into your park. So we have made provisions in the bid documents that there would be tap-offs that could later be have a fitting attached to them to be able to run water to the park. We did make provisions to have water fountains. We did make provisions to have the dog water fountain in there and the tap-offs for all those things. So just keep in mind, if you decide that you want to move forward and you're considering the costs of it, you're also improving your infrastructure in that park to be able to do future park events with having water and electric into that park. So it's just another piece
Great
to
point.
keep in mind that you could use going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon.
I want to ask Greg, just adding another bathroom, what kind of a toll does that put on your team?
It's kind of like I mentioned before, we've had issues, and I brought this up at the park board as well. We've had issues with not so nice conditions that the guys have had to clean in there. I guess that's the nicest way to put it. We've considered locking some of the bathrooms because of the conditions that we've been up against. It's not all the time.
The bathrooms in other parks or the porta
Spring
potties?
Valley.
Bathroom in other parks.
Okay.
We've had issues at Mall, and we've also had issues at Spring Valley. I'm going to say we've had probably more issues at Mall,
Oh, really?
and I'm surprised by that as well. So at some point, we may need to look into a company, because I don't feel quite right asking our guys to go in and maintain some of the conditions they've been up against. I will say that.
Would you say it's after a tournament weekend? Like, is there?
It's hard to tell because there's no cameras or anything at the park, so it's hard to tell. The one at Windlestrae does lock, but it's open pretty late because of the lights. So it could be early morning. We're not sure exactly when it's happening.
Thank you, Greg. One thing I wanted to mention and bring up as another consideration is the environmental impact of porta potties. It's not the best. I know that it's something that we sometimes have to have, but in terms of the impact of transporting and the chemicals and so forth, it's a much better situation, as any country with a first world country would agree that sanitary sewers are very important, and having access to a flushable toilet and without the chemicals and so forth is a real great asset to our environment, in addition to just having the convenience of having a flush and a cleaner facility. I know a lot of people here wouldn't necessarily want to use a porta potty and would bypass it for obvious reasons, myself included. So, and I will also add that it's not just kids and elders. My own husband, we can't go many places unless there's a toilet available to him. So this does require, it's something we don't like to talk about as a society since it's private, but there are a lot of people that have, whether it be GI or other bladdery issues, that they can't go places unless there is a bathroom available to them. So I think this is something that is a great comfort to a lot of people that don't want to mention it as something they need to have. But having bathrooms is really an important thing for a lot of people. So
This is a wonderful opportunity for us to do it very cost effectively, to enhance one of our parks. And that's why one of the reasons why I wanted Brian to share that information with you about the cost of some of the other park improvements that we've made recently, and to what extent we were able to generate, or offset some of the costs with grants. As you can see from the note that he sent us earlier, that this is by far the greatest in terms of percentage that we've been able to receive through the generosity of our sewer authority toward any one of these park improvements. So I just feel like this is a wonderful opportunity to bring a much needed facility to one of our parks for a fraction of what it would cost at any other time.
I agree. Oh, we have someone else.
I came in prepared to say no, and then hearing from everyone and hearing from Hannah, I think you've changed my mind.
And here's another one.
And I wasn't saying no. I just wanted more information. But the gentleman who mentioned the grandparents and anyone up here, the ladies know I'm a sucker for my seniors. Just, you know that.
Hi, Missy Dom, 103 Brittany Place. So just one other thing besides all of these great explanations, but I was just at Rose Twig over the weekend. I'm there for softball, soccer. That we had an emergency situation with a soccer player, and it was a girls' team. So to get her to a bathroom quickly was really hard. And so it took we took her to the porta potty. The porta potty was a mess actually at the time. And so we had to drag her over to Wendell-Stray. So getting her, it took about 10, 15 minutes, honestly, to try one option to get to the next. And so it was just really frustrating that we're always on that side for the girls, it seems like. And no offense to the boys, but it's just a little easier to not only go to the bathroom in the wild if they wanted to, but to go over to the Wendell-Stray area is just a little hard on the girls sometimes. But there was one other point I wanted to make, that the bathrooms also, I would like to say in the township, I always think the bathrooms are so well kept. I'm always so impressed with Montgomery Township bathrooms in general. But we travel to a lot of other sports teams and such. And so it's really nice to have a township that keeps their actual bathrooms instead of just having porta potties everywhere. So I would like to thank you for that. So thanks.
Let them know. Joe, let them know.
Give credit where credit is due.
Hello, it's Kristen Mark, 120 Drayton Circle, and I echo what everyone is saying. I just wanted to add that in reflection of what Missy just mentioned, it's a quarter mile of walk round trip from Rose Twig 1 to the Wendell-Stray bathroom and back. So that is a long way to be having 12 and under girls to be doing in the middle of the game, possibly. So thank you again to the sewer authority, and hopefully I know that in my own house budget, sometimes you gotta scratch the nickels together to figure out how you're gonna make things happen, and I'm hoping that could happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question, since we have the heads of baseball and softball here. We're going to bite off this big $175,000 nut to do this. Yes, everyone in the community is going to use it, but you guys are going to use it the most. While we're going to make our budget, is there some way that you can think about in your budgets that maybe, I don't know what it costs for a kid to be in a league. I don't have any kids anymore. Can $5 per person, $10 per person, can you try to figure out in your budgets how maybe something could come back to the township? Because it does sound like we are going to have to hire somebody to take care of these bathrooms. It's the maintenance of the field, it's everything that's out there. And I think it's a lot easier for all of us to go ahead and spend this money if we felt that we could maybe every year get some portion back that could help pay for the cleaning service or the extra man hours that are going to have to go into taking care of this extra bathroom. I think it would just be hugely appreciated by staff and the board and the sewer for starting this thing off. But I would like to ask that as your clubs are making their budgets, you know, people go through Starbucks and get a $6 coffee. So, you know, could each child that is playing a sport, could some part of the fee come back to the township? I think it would be very, very helpful to the services that we're gonna have to deal with in these parks and in these bathrooms.
I would say, is baseball should be all sports?
I'm sorry?
All sports.
I don't think it's just a baseball, but I mean, you're asking for some kind of a token. My name's Brian, 218 Abbey Lane. You should impose some kind of an ask of all of the sports organizations because the soccer uses it pretty heavy. So
Sure.
while you have the heads of baseball, maybe there's a donation that can be made on a yearly basis that can be considered. But I also think there are much greater numbers on the soccer level right now than there are on the baseball. So then the question is it an equal thing or is it a prorated thing? Just some things to think about that while you have all the baseball, for sure it can be considered, but it should be something that I think is applied to all of the organizations that are using it.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I would just like to ask that everyone think about that in their budget and, you know, across the board for all sports.
And we may want to add cameras later on. We may want to add different locks that
agree.
automatically at 5 o'clock they
Outside.
close.
Cameras
or,
outside.
Yeah, whatever.
Outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Well, I just bring up historically, and I don't mean to belabor this because we're at 9:15 here. But historically, the township did try to enact a fee like that. You know, it was like a $5 per player or something charge. And then there was a lot of, you know, pushback from the community about that fee. And then ultimately, I think the supervisors, they kept waiving it. And then we just made it go away ultimately. But, you know, faced with, you know, dwindling capital reserve fund and, you know, our expenses for operating the township and providing all the necessary services keep going up. And, you know, revenues have kind of flattened. And, you know, so we, you know, we're going to be faced with, you know, either raising taxes or cutting services. And there's only so much cutting we can do. So some collaboration here with our sports organizations would be appreciated.
So I'll say on that $5 fee, I'm sorry, I'll call him Brian. So on that $5 fee, that was presented years ago.
Yeah.
Right to us, and we actually took it back to the board, with our treasurer. We took that back to the board and we did approve it, then we never did anything with it. So we are open to at least $5, maybe more than that. To Brian's point, I know Monu has been approached with that as well. We have friends and family on that board as well. So we could talk to them as well. We appreciate everything that Greg's team does for the township, for the field. Our field, I'll speak specifically for baseball, softball. Our fields look amazing. We get compliments every time a visiting team comes. Even just yesterday, something that, you know, he can't control, the rain, right? Our fields are really dry right now, right? The dirt, I mean, it's like baby powder out there. But the compliments that we get on our facilities happens every time a visiting team comes here.
That's
Every time,
fantastic.
right? And just, you know, and again, we have not participated in any way back to that in a monetary way. But you know what Scotty and these guys do, it's unbelievable. So we're happy to do that. We're happy to support the township the way the township supports our program. I'll talk to them on you. We'll take that to them. But we should have some other. I know Greg, you're talking to them on you on other things. We could bring it up to them as well.
If you guys all can do that, that's really, really appreciated. We love that.
Yeah, we know we don't have a cost as an organization to our facilities. Other organizations do. We don't have that, but we're happy to participate for sure.
Okay.
Would you, in the public park, when a sponsor put a sign on the bathroom, would it pay like $500 and put a sign up? Donate, you know, on an annual basis.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Does this work?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so.
There you
So one other idea, and I know it's public park, but obviously we put some signage up where sponsors can give money. Another way, instead of taxing the families completely, would you be open to putting some kind of a signage on there where they could, it could rotate it, that they would donate $250 or $500. It'd be for a period of time that could go straight to like Greg to support the cleaning.
I don't think we're above having sponsorship.
It's just,
Sure.
at some point you don't want to tax.
Within reason, I mean, appropriate for children. and whatnot.
Correct.
Yes, of course. You can put some guidelines in, but that's another way to generate, $500 to $1,000 a year,
Right.
and it could be an ongoing thing. But
maybe we
anyway,
can-
just ideas.
Maybe we could have you come back to the Parks Board and make a proposal that the Parks Board could consider and then make a recommendation to the board. I think that might be appropriate.
I love it.
Just other ways to kind of generate some
Mhm.
Good idea.
Really nice. Thank you for all the ideas.
Someone else?
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
We have to make a vote.
Dan Amati, 424 South Stonehenge Drive. So I'm also a member of MTBSA. My son and my daughter both play baseball and softball. And everything that everybody said echoed, in my family as well. There's two things that my kids brought up to me today before I came here. And the first one was my son does a lot of summer camps. And Rose Twig is a place where summer camps go for the basketball fields or for tennis courts or basketball courts and tennis courts and things like that. So in the middle of the summer this year, he went there and it was like 100 degrees that week. And he got sick and he was stuck in a porta potty until my wife could get there. So just another thing to think about, that it's just not baseball. It's just not soccer. It's just not a tennis club. It's not the running club. But it's also, there are camps that use that in the summertime. So the other thing that my daughter mentioned was, there's that beautiful playground in the back there with the nice sunshade. And when our kids were younger, that was a great place to go compared to going to the main part of Windlestray with the park or the swing sets and things that are out open in the sun. And the amount of young families that are there with young children that need to go do a little bit more than a diaper change in the back of their car. Just consider that extra piece there to have that nice bathroom so that they can, clean up a little bit. So
Wash their hands.
Wash their hands, exactly. So I just wanted to add another spin that's not just baseball and softball. And thank you also to the sewer authority. That amount of money is just tremendous. And to be able to donate that to the community is just great. I appreciate that.
Thank you. All right. I think we have had enough public comment. I think everyone that's talked tonight has swayed those of us who may not have wanted to do it. So unless there's any other questions, I'm going to move that we go ahead and approve this. We thank the sewer authority for their generous gift, and we will spend the rest of the money that we need to make this a finished project for all the families involved.
I second the motion.
Any further public comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It was unanimous. So thank you all for coming out and sharing your stories.
You did it.
And for
Thank you, Shannon.
But thank you also for being willing to talk to us and figure out how to help pay for the costs that are going to come. That is something that we really appreciate. So that's done. All right.
We got some more agenda items.
Yeah, we have other things. So
But feel free to.
if you guys all want to go,
It's a school night.
thank you for coming out. I know. All right. All right, item 13, new business, department reports. I did not get to look at this, so I don't know who was planning to present anything tonight. Any, do you have anything?
No.
Okay.
9:23.
Yep, all right, we're moving on with that. Any earth-shattering news from any committee meetings this month? Not,
Traffic Garden is on its way. They're working on that. The 2 new officers have been trained. They're out on patrol and doing all of that now. We're looking to hire a couple more, and of course, we know Acting Chief Peoples is here, and we appreciate you. I'm gonna leave it at that. How's that?
It's great.
Time?
Anyone else?
I have nothing earth shattering.
I don't either.
There's nothing earth shattering.
All right, then. I'm gonna move to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, nicely done.
Maybe since you don't carry your paperwork with you.